recording. Okay, so for today, when you go to the class project page, down at the very bottom, you can download a PDF of today's instructions, but I passed one out for you. There's 3 different cartoons you can download from the Moodle page. For this particular project, you're only going to be responsible for colorizing one of them. And these are what they look like. They're just simple black and white line art drawings, cartoons. What I'll do for you though, if you want to do the other 2, and turn those in, I'll give you 5 points bonus on anything that you've turned in. This could be a test, a project, anything else that you've done. So you can choose any one of these 3, and what we're going to do is we're going to colorize it in Photoshop. Now you already know pretty much the basics of how to do this. I've already started on one of them, so I'll jump into Photoshop. First of all, let's look at our layers palette. When you open up your document in Photoshop, the background layer is going to be the cartoon by itself. And you know we don't want to cover up the pixels, so we don't want to paint on these. So when you make or open up your document, the first thing you need to do is to make a new layer on top of it. And layer 1 is what you're going to do your painting inside of. So everything that you do, make sure you're on layer 1. If you accidentally see that this one's highlighted, it's going to be difficult to back up and undo that. So I'm working in layer 1. The 2 main tools that will really help you out is your paintbrush tool, which we've had a lot of practice using, and the new fill bucket tool that we kind of used a little bit last project. This one's going to become a little bit more important to use to help you fill in large areas very quickly. So I'm going to choose this one. What you need to do is, with the fill bucket, what does the fill bucket allow you to do? Yep, fill an area quickly with just one click. And so since we're not going to fill in an entire layer with it, we actually want to fill in, say I wanted to quickly colorize his jacket that he's wearing here. I'm going to zoom in, so first of all I can see it. And you can see when you zoom in it starts to become pixelated. That's because it's a low resolution image. If this was a real cartoon that you were doing, you would want a high resolution scan. But for the sake of this one, we're going to keep it low res. With the fill bucket selected, look up at the top for your options that you have. First of all, make sure you're working in normal mode and that your opacity is up to 100%. Y'all remember that the tolerance allows you to choose how much of an area that it will fill in based on the colors you click on. And that continuous, with it checked off, what's the difference between having continuous turned on or turned off? Y'all remember? Exactly, bingo. If you had continuous turned off, I'm going to choose, say, this green color. Remember, I'm working in layer 1, and I'm going to turn off this one as well. If I clicked just once, it's going to fill in everything that's the same area that I clicked on. I'm going to undo, Command Z will allow me to do that. Turning on continuous will keep it within one particular area. Here's another thing you need to have checked off for this project. Make sure that the all layers check is checked off. What this is going to do is it's going to look on not just layer 1 but also layer 2 at the different layer shapes to fill it in. So now when I click on this area, it'll automatically fill in that area rather than filling it in. If I didn't have it all layers turned on, it'll do the same thing. It'll fill in just everything on layer 1. It's not what we want. So with that one clicked off, in just a few clicks, it's very easy to fill in the larger areas that you want to. Now there will be some times that you'll need to get into, like right down here I can see a little white spot that I need to fill in. At this point you can swap over to your paintbrush and you can just paint in that particular area. Or if there's a small nook or cranny that maybe you're missing, this is when you would use your paintbrush to do that. So at first, all you're going to do is just lay down some solid colors to work with. So if I want to give this t-shirt a color, we'll make it red, red from there. By the way, the keyboard shortcut to quickly choose your paintbrush is hitting the letter B for brush. With B selected, you can now start working with your paintbrush to fill in any area that's missing. Right around here on the collar would be very difficult to do with a fill bucket, so we're going to use that one as well. Another great keyboard shortcut to remember, if you've got your paintbrush or your fill bucket selected, holding down the Option key changes your icon to what looks like a little medical dropper. This is called an eyedropper. With this, I can click on an area of pixels and pick up that color. So let's say I wanted to quickly reuse this color blue. I'm holding down Option, clicking on this one. Notice that my fill color turned to blue. So now when I click on to another area, I'm automatically using this particular color, and I can reuse it over and over again. If I wanted to pick up the skin color, hold down Option, click on it, and now I've got the skin color loaded up, and I can quickly add that one in as well. Pretty cool. All right. Uh-oh, what happened up here? I clicked on this area and all of a sudden the background filled in. Why did it do that?
There's holes in the line.
Bingo, there's some holes in the lines. If you look really, really closely, remember it's going to continuously look at all the pixels that are close to it. And I bet when it got up to here at the at his hairline, or maybe on this side, it said, okay, there's not enough tolerance. I'm just going to bleed over into this area, and I'm going to bleed over into the background. If that ever happens, swap over to your brush tool, hit B, and paint in where you think there may be a hole at. So I think maybe there's one right up around here. I'm just going to paint it in with a color. Let's see, y'all see any other particular place? Say right there. With those holes, quote, filled up, I can swap back over to my paintbrush. By the way, the keyboard shortcut for the the fill bucket is the letter G. So I can press G and click on it, and that'll automatically fill in those particular areas. I think it'll work the same for his hair. Let's make his hair, oh, I don't know, let's make it dark orange. Cancel. Does the same thing. So I've got to swap over to my paintbrush and actually fill in where I think there may be a hole or so. It'll be trial and error, but you'll get it out pretty quickly that way as well. It's like I even accidentally filled in that area, so I may have to go back in with my paintbrush and touch it up from there. So essentially, this is what you're going to do for the entire cartoon that you're going to fill in. Make sure you get every aspect of it, not just the characters, but also the background as well. Let me fill in the background with a pretty neutral color. Let's give it a light green. He's already got something green. Let's make it light red, pink. Grab my gradient. Just in a couple of clicks, very quickly, very simply, fills in that particular area. All good? Any questions about that? It's what's going to make it very simple. Let me show you how you can take a simple coloring job and turn it into an awesome coloring job. By the way, the guy who did these particular cartoons, his name is Wes Mulbash. He's a guy that I follow on Twitter. He's a Christian cartoonist. He's got a couple of different cartoons going on. He publishes them online. You can see his portfolio at wesdraws.com. And you can see kind of how he does his own coloring scheme within his portfolio. You can click on his comics. He's got a couple of them that he publishes out week to week from there. Really cool, really great guy, and that's where I got these from. So if you want to see how he does his coloring scheme, have a look at his portfolio. But to take a regular flat illustration, what I want you to do is try to add some more depth to it. You can do this by adding some shadows and some highlights to the particular figures that you're working on. Here's how you can do that very simply, very quickly. Let's say I wanted to add a shadow to this guy's figure. To do this, we're going to select the magic wand tool. What does the magic wand tool allow you to do?
Select an area.
Okay. Not just any area. What about it makes different from other selection tools? Do I need to reteach a lesson? Okay. The magic wand tool allows you to select an area of like pixels. So rather than a particular shape or a particular area, these are all just like pixels. So what I want to do is, I've got continuous turned on. I want to select just the area of his forehead. Remember, holding down Shift will allow you to add on to a selection. You can see very quickly I've selected just the skin tone color area, which is what I want to be able to affect. Okay. I've got my marching ants going on, and honestly it's going to kind of get in my way. Here's how you can turn off marching ants but still have that area selected. Go to Select and then choose, go to View and Show Selection Edge. I've actually changed that up a little bit. It used to hide is what it was called. When I turn off the selection edge, the area is still selected, but it just doesn't give you that marching ants. Now I can choose my paintbrush tool, hold down my Option key and we'll pick up my skin tone. And to get a darker version of the skin tone, you can double click on your color picker and just choose a slightly darker variation of this one. Now here's where the selection comes in handy. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. When I paint inside a selected area, it's only going to stay within that selection. So very easily, very quickly, I can paint over and put a shadow on this particular character. Obviously it's a very, very dark shadow. I'll back it up. If I want to soften it up, maybe I'll change the hardness of my brush. Let's bring it down to a softer edge. Now when I paint over, it blends in much, much smoother, much quickly. So now very quickly, I've added a shadow area to that side. To do a highlight, simply choose a lighter color. And you can add a highlight, say, to this side. You can see I got off by a little bit. But it's only going to stay within that selected area that I have. When you do this, it adds a lot more pop, a lot more value to the drawings that you do, and it just makes it look a lot better. You can do the same thing for your background. By the way, to turn on your extras, go back to Show, the selection, and there it is. To deselect it, Command D, and that's deselected. Let's get the background. Holding down my Shift key, I'm going to select just this area. Another great thing you can do is play around with the different types of brushes that you're using. So View, Show, we're going to turn off the selection area. Let's choose another type of brush, maybe one of these textured brushes down here at the back. There we go. So this one, whenever I paint with it, we'll make it much, much bigger. And it kind of gives me this type of texture to it. Let's make it a darker version of this red. So I'm going to just paint in a textured area on the background and blend it in a little bit more. Maybe even get a little bit darker from there. I'll leave it up to you however you want to do this. But the main thing I'm looking for is that you fill in all the areas, add some highlights, and add some shadows to each of the characters when you're done. When you are done, you can save a Photoshop version of this that'll save all the layers, but to upload it, go to File and Save As, and make sure your format is a JPEG, and you can upload that one to Moodle as well. Like I said, if you want to do the other two, those other two are going to be worth 5 points each for this particular project. Any questions? Okay, I'll turn it back over to you and let y'all get started.